Subscribe our channel and press the bell icon for watching more video.
The next thing that I want you to understand is the perspective that you should be taken when you're learning SAP. Typically, there are two different kinds of ways business transactions can happen. One is B2B, none other is B2C. B2B stands for business to business. B2C stands for business to consumer or customer. Let me give you some examples. If you're trying to buy coffee beans for the coffee grinder at your home, or you need some flour at home, what do? You go to Amazon.com, say, or Walmart. You select your products, then you pay, take the bag of coffee, put it in your truck, and go home. Simple. So the process of buying coffee beans for home or for retail consumption generally is pretty simple. Imagine the for yourself, it's very simple, right? You're the approver, you're the QA, you go inspect the coffee for smell, you're the logistics provider, meaning you take the coffee, put it in your truck or car, and you drive home, right? You are everything. You do all of that. In a B2B scenario, though, there are different sets of people doing different sets of things, all to make this purchase happen. Another difference is in a B2B scenario, goods are paid after delivery, right? You know the process. A PO is raised to the vendor sends the goods, the vendor sends the invoice is paid. So there are 4 steps. So the goods are delivered, that's step number 2, and step number 3 or 4, it's paid. But in a B2C scenario, you pay before delivery. This is a typical case, right? Example, Amazon.com, Walmart. Swipe your card, put your card in, take the goods, and before you take the goods, you're already paying for it. There are some occasional usage-based scenarios in B2C, like Comcast or any kind of service where they won't know how much to charge up front. In that case, you pay after. So in such kind of situations, you're sent a bill later, after usage. Except for those usage kind of scenarios, for regular scenarios where the price is fixed, you almost always pay before delivery. So what's the point I'm trying to make? The point I'm trying to make is, if you want to learn SAP or any other ERP system, think from the perspective of B2B, because that's what these softwares are built for. B2C is served by different class of software. ERP software typically deals with B2B. And we'll talk about some of the scenarios where SAP plays a role in B2C situations. But for the most part, if you want to learn SAP, think from the mindset or perspective of a B2B. So what are the things that we have covered here? We have understood that B2B scenarios are complex. They're not as simple as buying coffee from Walmart. So it's a long decision-making process. It takes time. There are people identifying the need, there are approvers, and there is a whole logistics chain and finance involved to pay the goods. And typically, you pay your goods after you receive the goods.